What's up, everybody? Brett here, back today casting some more Total War Warhammer 2 multiplayer action. This is going to be a game that I'm pretty much hot off the presses playing, and it was a good one. My opponent was very courteous. Maybe Couscous 2000? Is that what that's supposed to be? Good name. But very, very skilled player. I wasn't expecting to see a Vampire Coast build, and that's exactly what I got. And so I kind of had to like improvise this build on the fly, but I thought it came out pretty damn good. So I managed to use some of the new units, namely one of the units that I think is probably the perhaps the unsung hero of the update, the Stone Trolls, who have better armor than a normal troll, higher weapon strength if I do remember. They also have missile resistance 30%. So against a ranged heavy faction like the Vampire Coast, I felt like they might just be perfect. They of course have regeneration, cause fear, all that good stuff. They're also magic resistant, 25%. That can sometimes be relevant. Against the Vampire Coast, I also like to go pretty damn cheap with the standard Night Goblins. They have silver shields, they cause poison, and they're basically, they're pretty damn invisible right until they get up onto the front line. So it allows them to get there without being shot to pieces. My build is pretty wide. I was really testing my micro here, considering how rusty I feel. This being one of the first games I've jumped into in multiplayer in quite some time. Unfortunately, I haven't had a ton of time to play. I went with the Teeth Robbers, one of my old favorites. These guys are here to rob some teeth. Great chariot unit. They do tons of damage. They're super fast. And then I also have the standard Death Creepers, Morgrim's Mangy Marauders here for some armor piercing and poison. And then if you need to, you can throw these guys into melee, the Regiments of Renown. They'll do okay against some low tier stuff, which is mostly what Vampire Coast will bring. I also, guys, I brought in some Snotling pumpwagons. The basic version, I think, is probably good enough. They're so damn cheap, and if they could just get in and amongst these zombies, they'll just tear them to pieces, and they really won't die. I don't know if it's something to do with their animations or what it is, but they are very resilient. I also have one Goblin Rock Lobber on this flank, and I have another one on this flank, and the idea really isn't to protect them. It's to let them be a focused of whatever, you know, my opponent wants to do. I was honestly expecting mortars. This map, if you'll notice, it has high ground in the center and low ground in both starting positions. So if you want an artillery piece that can do some damage, you can't bring a cannon in this matchup. You need to bring something like a mortar. So a mortar or a catapult. Otherwise, you're not going to get that arc of fire to get over this central hill. So knowing this map, I went ahead and I took two Goblin Rock Lobbers, put them far out. If my opponent wants to try and shut them down, they're going to have to invest resources in that. And I'm ready to counter it. I have a backline squad, Forest Goblin Spider Riders for poison, and then some Orc Boar Boys for mass and some armor-piercing weapon strength, mixed with my Night Goblin War Boss, who, riding his very happy squig. Oh, that's cool. They gave him the armored squig, that special unit that they've added in the DLC. But he has the Tormentor Sword. So I was hoping Luther Harkin would come down, let me wrap him up, and then I could Tormentor Sword, prevent him from moving, and then goon him that way. I've also got 3 Night Goblin Archers here with their poison as well. And they're great counter to most of what the Vampire Coast does bring. They're good against everything on this side of the battlefield. They're good at just clearing out zombies. So I saw that my opponent was bringing in these deck dropper bombers to try and shut down my Goblin Rock Lobber. So I brought over both of my Night Goblin Archers to counter them. And they're going to start shooting there. And just to take some of the pressure off of, you know, whatever he's deciding to shoot at here. He got his, Luther Harkin that is, he got his Terror Guy's Breath Attack off on my Rock Lobbers. But that did that shut down one of them? I think they're all still operational. So it did some damage, but ultimately not going to be that valuable. And he's going to take some poking fire from my Night Goblin Archers. And guys, last but not least, I do have a Night Goblin Shaman here. He's got a... Let's go over his spells. He's got Curse of the Bad Moon. I'm going to get a good one of those off in this game. Itchy Nuisance to help me win the frontline fight. And then Vindictive Glare is kind of a late game, you know, poke down strategy. I try not to goon lords that much. It's not really my thing. But there are times when you can use an extra couple hundred points of damage on a lord. Or a large single target entity. Like, I didn't know. He could have brought Necrophex Colossi. He could have brought a Crab. A Leviathan. You know, you gotta be ready for whatever. So I'm going to be getting in this back line, but to my opponent's credit, he did what I like to do. He protected his back line completely with zombie pirate deckhand mobs with pole arms. Got to come up with an acronym for these guys. ZPD MPs? No, that's still bad. But yeah, so he's got a complete wraparound. Normally in this matchup, I'll go a ton of squigs, but I wanted to try out the Snotlings and see how they do. And yeah, they would not have been good here because he's able to completely encase his range units, these handguns. He's got 3 handguns, one of which is the black spot. So these guys have anti-large. They have basically bayonets affixed to their weapons, so they can kind of fight in melee if they need to. And then the Shade Wraith Gunners who do magic damage. I'm not sure what the relevance of the magic damage was supposed to be here, but they'll do decent damage regardless. They're a pretty amazing unit, and they have high physical resistance, so it can be rough to snipe them out or to counter snipe them. So you'll see here the deck bombers are going down. The front line of zombie pirate deckhand mobs has clashed with my stone trolls. My units are locked, so all I have to do is right click, boom. They'll engage with the first available enemy, and that's great for me. And as soon as I can get rid of these deck bombers, I'm going to be switching my focus fire over to here. And right now I think my rock lobbers are shooting at whatever I think they can actually practically hit with their art. And let's get into it. These trolls have very little in the way of competition. Even against the zombie pirate deckhand mobs, their regeneration is going to help them win through. I'm going to get my snotlings going. I held back my cavalry because I felt like this was just a fake. I felt like Luther Harkin was going to come back any second. And to my surprise, he kind of didn't. So then you'll see here I start to move. You can see my movement orders. I'm like, alright, the rock lobber is no longer the game. He's going to ignore it, so I will too. And I just need to inundate this with the snotling pump wagons. You'll see they get in there, and they're just so hard to get rid of. And I'm going to drop a bad moon right on top of this. Hell yeah, I love that animation. And it's going to go in a perfect direction here and start chewing these guys up. Not too many kills. But even then, I'm going to get my my Night Goblin Shaman in the action. I'm going to try to avoid Luther Harkin if I can. Make him come to me and then see if I can spring my trap that way. My Cav is in the back line shooting. We're going to be kiting these zombie pirates. I was hoping to shut these guys down, but they kind of became a non-factor. They're going to get decent kills on my goblins. But that's not really the highest priority right now. I'm trying to make sure everything is busy. He's got a caster, a Vampire Fleet Captain of Death. What did he just cast? Doom and Darkness. I was wondering why I broke in this pocket. I didn't notice it while we were fighting. But I was like, what the hell? Why did my stone trolls run? I found them later and I brought them back. But that makes a heck of a lot of sense. That's a great spell to bring versus low leadership factions. You're going to get stuff like trolls and goblins. They're just going to break off. And in this pocket here, my opponent's doing quite well. My orc boar boys are being inundated by the zombie pirate deckhand mobs, but my itchy nuisance is hopefully going to counter that with the melee attack down to 0. That's allowing them to kind of stay in this fight and try and survive. My Night Goblin Warboss has been taking some work. He's got taunted. He's getting basically all of the negative debuffs that Luther Harkin can bring, as well as his pistol has been focused on him quite a bit this battle so far. Kiting here, pulled off the Death Creepers to apply this poison, because these dudes are still a pain in my butt. I've managed to get my stone trolls surrounding the Vampire Fleet Captain. We can go over here and watch him get beat down. I don't know if I quite did it yet, but there's a point where I realized they were blobbing up on him, and then I pulled him through, and then I trap him in. Let's see, the Snotling Pump Wagons. Yeah, it's hard because, first off, my micro was slacking a little bit here, but goblins and trolls like to run, and against this build, and this faction where everything basically causes fear, you've got to be Johnny on the spot with your micro. And a lot of stuff has crumbled already. Luther Harkin has managed to get some great damage. He's going to be tough to take down here. My Night Goblin Warboss is really no match for him, which is why I basically consider him like half of a lord. Whenever I bring a cheap lord like this, I always bring like a bodyguard unit, which I considered these Spider Riders and my Orc Boar Boys. For me, they all function as one big unit. And, you know, oh, nice. He's accidentally shooting himself in the back, it looks like. I get a couple of Vindictive Glares, kind of point blank into Luther Harkin, but he's so damn hard to take down. He's got regeneration, he flies, and he's just been shooting my goblin in the back this whole time. He does have shields and decent armor, but at this point, I mean, I'm trying not to focus too much on Luther Harkin other than tying him down, keeping him from chasing my lord and killing him, because that could lead to some mass rout type stuff. What I want to do is absolutely shatter everything in this army. I did use a Waaagh this battle as well, it's worth noting. For those of you who perhaps haven't seen it, I'm sure most of you have, and that's going to be all she wrote. The new WA is tied to every lord. It's built into their cost. You don't have to worry about bringing it or forgetting it or anything like that. And yeah, goblins are a great counter to the Vampire Coast. I did pretty much lock in greenskins right at the start, so it wasn't that like my opponent picked Vampire Coast and then I counter-picked them. This is probably a pretty damn good build versus goblins. I don't know what my opponent with this build could have done to win. I think I pretty much had the advantage. I had the ranged advantage. I had the artillery advantage. I had the mobility advantage. I had pretty much everything going for me. Plus, I also had monstrous units in the form of these stone trolls who could, you know, really fight all day. The only disastrous thing that could have happened is if I had lost my Night Goblin War Boss to Luther Harkin, who is a pretty dangerous duelist and can just sit in the air all day long and shoot you with his pistol and get a ton of damage that way. If I was my opponent, probably the one thing I would tweak is that this... Actually, I'd probably tweak a few things. I like the inclusion of the deck droppers bombers. I thought those were pretty neat. I would change the handguns and the Shade Wraith gunners, and probably the bombers as well. Honestly, this whole ranged core, I think it might have just been a symptom of my opponent not predicting the map and how the map's line of sight might cause issues, and also perhaps not giving his ranged units enough space with his defensive units, so that way whenever I kind of hit that front line, I was able just to push through with the Snotlings. And you'll see here, for their cost, they're like dirt cheap. Let's see, let's go real quick. We could go into like custom battles. I just want to see what the prices are so I can kind of show you guys. Let's see, for Snotlings, $450. That's nothing, y'all. That's practically free. That's another. I used to go with the squig herds for that. I think the squig herds are one of the best units in all of the greenskin rosters that nobody ever uses. There was a time in their history where they were broken, and they had to nerf them into the ground because they could single-handedly. If someone picked dwarves and you picked greenskins and just brought an all squig army, they just couldn't win. It was just impossible. You could just swallow them up with all that armor piercing and anti-infantry. But now I think the Snotlings, for their cost, for $450, I could definitely see bringing the higher tier variants. And against perhaps dwarves, high armor infantry units, I would consider bringing at least maybe 2 of the Snotling pump wagons and applying that armor sundering that they have. You'll look in their melee attack where you see that little symbol, meaning that they'll lower the armor of anything they hit, allowing your goblins to do even more damage, especially if you pair them with cheap infantry. That's where I think you're going to get the most value. Yeah, hopefully in an upcoming video I'll be able to showcase some of the big boys, the rogue idols, like the biggin. I'd love to get a chance to play around with that. And the river trolls as well, they'll have their day. You know, my army was full. I spent my money very well. So if I wanted to cut corners a bit and get some higher tier units, I could cut some costs on the stone trolls perhaps and just go for river trolls who have an aura that lowers melee attack. It would have made the frontline fight perhaps even better. I was just concerned about missile pressure, which is why I went with the 30% missile resistance and the 70 armor of the stone trolls. So that was my thinking there. And then chariots and such are just generally good versus the Vampire Coast. Alright guys, that's going to be it for me today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. I have a Discord, guys. If you'd like to send me replays for me to cast on the new DLC content, for sure, send it to me. It's under Total War Replays. All you got to do is go to the link in the description down below for this video. You'll find the Discord. I'd be happy to have you join it and then submit replays. Just let me know who you are, and if it's your first time submitting a replay, just maybe perhaps a brief description of what it's about, or just name it something that makes sense to me and I'll watch it, you know. Alright guys, take care, and as always, I'll see you in the next one. Later, y'all.